relations, everyone. Thank you so much. I want to thank Prakriti for giving me this opportunity, Harish especially for helping us. I'd like to thank a few special people here. My friend, colleague, former colleague, writer, editor, Prema Ratna. When I was so small, and I think it was a big one. And I'd like, though they haven't come, I'd like to thank a few people. Srilata, she's a very good friend of mine. Retired professor from IIT, a writer. I think she'll come a little late. And she's also a writer. And my cousin Vidya, she couldn't come because she's with her grandchild. And Jayashree Nambiar, former principal of the school Kefa, and my friend and colleague. So thank you so much. Thank you everyone. And I want to thank Shri also for everything. Shri. Okay. Now I'd like to invite AVIS and Vani. Vani is special. Vani's father is the first person who told me about teaching. He told me that teaching can be very, very creative and it's an art. And even you can plan your syllabus if you are very good at it. So that I still remember, Vani. So Vani, please come. AVIS. Vani will release the book. And the first copy, I would like to give it to a very special person, my aunt and my friend and everything, Usha Varma. Please come. Thank you. Just pull it.
Just put it?
Yeah.
No,
It's
not
not. You can give it to her.
Why don't you give it? You must
give the copy to her. This is the first copy.
Oh, thank
Okay,
This is the first
I'm
copy.
supposed to give you the first copy.
Thank you.
Take a picture. Come.
They have their phones out, kindly put it on silence. Thank you so much.
I have a little gift for a few people here.
Geeta, you want her to wait? You want her to wait?
Davis, thank you so much. Small gift.
Thank you so much.
And one is for you only. One is for Vidya and one is for Prakriti and Harish.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'd like Vidya to take over.
Hello.
Thank you for keeping your phones on silent.
And good evening, and I'm so glad you're all here. 3 cheers to this amazing audience who, who braved the rising heat and who come here this evening. And plus, there are so many exciting events happening out there in Chennai today. In spite of that, you all come here and to cheer Geeta and to cheer poetry. So thank you so much. Thank you, Geeta, and congratulations on your 3rd book. Congratulations, Sumita, also for having brought out such a beautiful book. This evening is all about this gorgeous lady sitting here, Geeta, whose poetry is not different from her. No, it's as sublime as she is. Very simple, yet very deep, evocative. All that is Geeta and all that is her poetry. And the poems in this book, especially Through the Window, I mean, the cover page itself is so relaxing for this summer, a good book for a summer read, right? So I'm told that the picture was clicked by Shree. So it's a beautiful picture, Shree, and Sumita's done a wonderful job designing the cover. Not just designing the cover, but the entire book itself is beautifully laid out. This book, the poems in this book are, they speak to you. Like, when you read them, you can actually hear Geeta's voice. And every time I needed comfort, I've gone to this book and I've read these poems. Today I will read out a poem from this book. So if you have a copy, the poem I'm going to read out is from page 48. If you have a copy, you might want to follow. Yes, and in case you don't have a copy, the books are all there on the table, so you might want to purchase a book. So we have Aditya sitting there.
Special price for today is 150.
Okay, a special price for today is at 150. So yeah.
And the older books are at 50 rupees.
Yes, and
courtesy Geeta.
Yes, and the older Geeta's previous books are also there, and you will get them at 50 rupees. It's a launch price, so don't miss out this exciting deal, right? So here I go with, there are so many poems here that I would really want to read, but I've settled with this. So, the gushing waves, breaking all barriers. I think I'll wait for them to, some are buying
Yeah,
books.
I think you should, since you made an announcement to buy the books.
Yes, I'll wait for
give them,
them.
we'll wait for them to come back.
Page 48. So page 48. The gushing waves, breaking all barriers, seeped in through cracks of the crumbling wall. A gentle trickle of tears. Replaced words, actions, carrying them away into the depths of the ocean, drowning, blinded. What shore welcomed them? What shore welcomed them? Or are they lost forever? No one knows. What shore welcomed them? Or are they lost forever? No one knows. Thank you, Geeta.
Thank you.
This is a beautiful poem that's given me a lot of strength when I needed it. Like I said, today, this evening is all about Geeta, and we want to know more about Geeta and her way of writing, her style of writing, and for that we have AVIS here. So Vani and Avis are the happiness walas. Happiness walas with a Y, not I. happynesswala, and it's a trademark. So their life's purpose is inspiring happiness. Happiness again with a Y. They are expert writers and biographers, speakers, and conversationalists. And that's obvious that you know about Avis's conversation skills as we go along. They distill lessons on life and happiness from human stories and the lived experiences of the people around us. Both Vani and Avis have curated and posted around 200 world-class conversations featuring over 300 guests. And there are some of his guests around here. I am one of them. Thank you, Avis. They have also written several biographies. Their latest book is about an amazing entrepreneur and his remarkable enterprise. It is titled Fabulous, Brilliant, Lovable. It sounds like Eat, Pray, Love, especially because the title is not in caps. Okay, and that fabulous, full stop, brilliant, full stop, lovable. Right, so that's an exciting title, and we're waiting for the release of the book. Avis is the author of Fall Like a Rose Petal, and its Tamil translation, Udirim Roja Idar Kola. It's a beautiful book, a very inspiring book. If you haven't read it, you must buy it. This book explores the spiritual lessons that Vani and Avis have learned from a life-changing experience that they both are going through. Vani and Avis are also culture specialists. They lead culture transformation programs in companies. To know more about their fascinating story, look them up on www.thehappynesswalas.com. That is happiness, happynesswalas. So www.thehappynesswalas.com. Thehappynesswalas.com. So, Avis, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. It's wonderful to see a full audience, and this is a public event that Vani and I are doing after quite a long time, and it's very exciting to be getting set to be in conversation with a poet, and I'll come to that very quickly. We love all of you. Thank you for coming and being here with us today. As I begin, I want to make a confession, and the confession is that I'm not quite a poet myself. I've written 2 poems in my life. One, I wrote it to my son, and it's published as part of my book, Fall Like a Rose Petal. And the other is not yet published. So in reality, because these 2 poems exist, I really can't even lean on Anand Bakshi and say, "Main shayar to nahi." I can't say that. And I have to admit yet that I'm not the kind of poet that Geeta is, that Shri is, that Vidya is, and some of you are here. For the longest time, for about 43 years of my life, poetry and I had no connection. I left it way back at school. And one day in Chicago, in Hyde Park, at the University of Chicago campus, the poem was born. And I wrote it to my son, and it went into my book, Fall Like a Rose Petal. The second poem happened more recently, last year. And it was born out of a spiritual kind of quest from within me. And for those of you who may make a farmaish after the program is over, I can recite it offline, completely offline. it is not yet published. Yet, although there's just 2 poems and I can't say, मैं शायर तो नहीं. Poetry and I have had an amazing affair, if I can say, in the last 10 to 15 years. My waking hours, my kind of, awareness is soaked in poetry. And in a way, it has been a balm for the soul, and it has been a beautiful experience of learning, talking to Vani, sharing, exploring from different cultures. In this past decade, I've also been in conversations with 2 amazing women poets. One of them is Arundhati Subramaniam, and the other is the remarkable Vidya Shankar. These 2 conversations are part of the conversation series that Vani and I have curated over these years on life and happiness. Today is the first time that I'm going to be in conversation with a poet on their work. The other 2 conversations have been on their life, and this is the first time I'm going to talk about the work of a poet, so I'm very excited. Thank you, Geeta, for the opportunity. Thank you, Shri and Geeta, for giving Vani and me this opportunity to be associated with this beautiful event. Having said that, let me also tell you why I find this beautiful event laced with a complexity. Geeta, in her inimitable way, has kind of set certain boundaries for me today. One, she has said, don't ask me too many questions on my life. Because she knows that that's one area that I like to explore. And the second is, don't analyze my poems. So can you just think about it for a minute? Here is a reluctant poet and an enthusiastic conversationalist. And here is a reluctant conversationalist and an enthusiastic poet. And Geeta has given me 50 minutes. So what are we going to do? So I took my dilemma to Vani and I said, what are we going to do? And the way we decided to approach today, the framework for today's conversation is, it has 4 parts. The framework has 4 parts. The conversation doesn't have 4 parts. Okay. The framework is that we decided to look at poetry like the way we would look at visual art. So when you see visual art, it lies in the eye of the beholder. The beauty, the meaning lies in the eye of the beholder. Similarly, ஒரு கவிதையை ரசிக்கணும்னா அது படிக்கிறவா தான் ரசிக்கணும், கேட்கிறவா தான் ரசிக்கணும். So the reader, the one who is soaking it in, is the one imbibing that experience and taking away something. So I'm going to talk from what I have taken away from Geeta's poems. Second, I am going to ask her about her journey as a poet. So that part, she has not put an embargo on that. Third, we're going to have readings, and some by Geeta, some by me, and we're going to take you through some of her works from this book. And the fourth, we're going to invite all of you at some point, which I will, indicate, to ask questions or share perspectives. And then we wind down the conversation. It's 6:46 on the clock that I have here, and we'll end this conversation at 7:30. When I do open the floor, I'll repeat this kind of guideline that we'll time it, and at some point I'll close the Q&A and I'll move on with the closing remarks to wind the conversation down on time. Okay? Is that a good framework?
Yes.
So let me get started and lead you into Geeta's beautiful, amazing work, her third book, Through the Window. When in this past decade I started experiencing poetry a big influence on my experience was what Osho had to say. Osho said, poetry is a miracle. It's the whole descending into the part. It's the ocean disappearing into the dewdrop. And I would often look at that definition, think about it, and I felt, am I missing something in poetry? Is it the way it was taught in school that made me very distant from poetry? Maybe I'm missing something. When Osho is saying this, how can I not see it? And when I started looking around, I found poetry in everything and everyone. And the poems started engaging with me. Poetry started romancing me. It was an amazing experience, and it still continues. So as I journeyed on that, I found Mary Oliver, for example, in The Uses of Sorrow. She says, someone I loved once gave me a box full of darkness. It took me years to understand that this too was a gift. The whole descending into the part, the ocean disappearing into the dewdrop. So succinctly. I found that with Ilayaraja. And we all know Ilayaraja as a music composer. But there's one work of his where, I mean, I'm sure he's done more, but the one that resonated with me the most was from this film called Panakar, Rajinikanth film, with which is a remake of an Amitabh Bachchan film, Lavaras. So Ilayaraja sings this song also himself. It's composed by him, sung by him, and written by him. Maratta vechchama thanni uttuma. The rest of the song is beautiful, but these two words, the ocean disappears into the dewdrop, which means if you have been created, which is what we all are, you will be looked after, cared for, provided for, and you don't need so many words, says Ilayaraja. Maratta vechchama thanni uttuma. When I read Geeta's works, I found this quality in some of her poems. And I'm opening today with picking up the first two poems. And I'll talk about what these poems did to me after I read them. I stand under a canopy of stars, watching the waves lash the shore. It is so soothing. Why look for miracles when this magic mesmerizes you, transports you to faraway heavens? I'd like to specifically repeat the line, why look for miracles when this magic mesmerizes you? You know, we've reached a point in human life, in human endeavor, when we begin to associate the word miracle with a thing that has to happen which you haven't taken for granted. We've reached that point. Whereas every day, every moment, every breath is a miracle, but we take it for granted. So we prefer that the miracle that we are looking for is something that we have not experienced before. And Geeta, very subtly, in such a gentle manner, why look for miracles? It's around you and it's mesmerizing you. And she brings it so gently to that reflective moment in the reader. That's what happened to me. The second poem on similar lines that I'd like to read is on page 11. There used to be a walk, a long stretch bordered with trees, tall and green, touching the skies. We went for nature walks, children and I, holding hands. We stood under the trees, looking up. The sun's rays filtered down through the leaves. Children found strange insects. We watched them move slowly. There was a huge banyan tree with branches spread out. We sat in its shade, quietly, listening to the birds among the branches. Looks like everything is gone. There is a huge pile of rubble blocking the walk now. I'd like to repeat the last line. Looks like everything's gone. There is a huge pile of rubble blocking the walk now. You see, the poet spends a lot of words giving us a vivid description of what once was, what she experienced, and what she remembers of it. But in one defining sentence, she tells us where the world has reached now. She tells us about human greed, she tells us about poor governance, and she tells us about exploitation and disregard of nature. In that one line, the ocean disappearing into the dewdrop. And that is why her poems, and Vidya kind of introduced them very well, I would call them endearingly simple. They're endearingly simple. And that is my first question to you, Geeta, which is, your works seem more like, here's what I've experienced, here's what I've felt, and this is what I'm sharing with you. Is that what led you to poetry? This urge to share, is that what led you to poetry?
I don't think I thought about all that seriously. But whenever I felt like writing, whenever I see something very, very sensitive or whatever, I feel like writing, so I just write out. Like when we were running the magazine called Trident, that's the first time I started the reporting, and it was my first experience. So he used to send me to all these places, and when I came back, I used to feel I don't want to go anywhere. This is better. I better sit at home. I don't want to see all this. Then I started writing. So I think that's
so when you write, do you have a fixed time when you sit down and write, or do you write when you feel?
Yeah, I write when I feel.
That's amazing. So is the phone a device where you record your
No.
thoughts, or
No,
do you
it's-
put pen to paper?
No, it stays in my mind, and then when I feel like writing, I write it.
Amazing. That's a great quality. It stays in your mind, and I think for you to be able to recall it and represent it is amazing. Do you remember your first poem? When was it?
That I don't remember really. I mean, everyone writes when you're in school and in college and all that, so I don't really remember. But seriously, I think now recently I started collecting them, writing and collecting
Which
them.
is when the first book was released.
Yes.
2018.
Yes.
Around that time. So I think it's if I may call it there was always the poet in you, and the blossoming happened more recently.
Yes.
Right? Like perhaps I could not think of such a deep engagement with poetry as I have now, but for the longest time I had no idea I was going to get there.
And then I have a poet at home.
Yes. He's not only a poet, he's also a rasika. Right? So, very interesting. Let's move on, and let me ask you to read the poem. I'd invite you to read the poem, which is what this book is titled, which is Through the Window. It's a very powerful poem, and it's on page 20-21. It runs into 2 pages, and Geeta will read it, and then I have some questions on it.
Sometimes, only sometimes, skies open, letting in a gentle breeze, bending the grass against cool waters of a lake, shimmering in the light of a descending sun. Only sometimes you hear leaves rustle on swaying trees, in your strength infinite, warming hearts in the lightness of happiness unbound. And only sometimes the soul, quiet, stays calm among tribulations of the mind, restless, wild, a monkey untamed, untethered, waiting for release every moment. Only sometimes.
In Urdu, there is a word called nazuk, which means very subtle. Minmaya, that subtlety is there in this poem. I'm so, I'm in bliss, in a state of bliss right now because I can give away my mic because it's not working. So I can throw my voice. No, I'm fine.
No, I think this hall is fine.
Yeah, that's fine. So I'll throw my voice as well. So my question to you, Geeta, is when you say only sometimes the mind calms and you experience that calmness, have you ever thought of why it happens only sometimes?
No, I'm speaking about impermanence. Like nothing is forever, all the time. That's what. Sometimes you feel everything is fine, and sometimes you don't, and you don't feel the calmness. Yeah.
It's amazing. Does poetry help you with feeling calm, and does that give you that sense of bliss and immersion?
Yes. In fact, poetry is very therapeutic for me. My feelings, I get rid of any uneasiness, I think, through poetry.
Beautiful. I'm glad we talked about it because this poem is not just the title of the book, and it's not just the centerpiece of this book. It's the centerpiece of our lives, because only sometimes the mind listens to you. In her poem, Geeta refers to the mind as a monkey, and the Buddha famously said that the mind is not just a monkey, the mind is a drunken monkey and kudigara korga. So, modern research, scientific research, has proven that the human mind thinks 60,000 thoughts a day. Now, most of these thoughts, without our knowledge, are steeped in scarcity. எது இல்லையோ அதை பற்றி தான் யோசிக்கும் இந்த மைண்ட். So often it is grief, guilt, anger, sadness, jealousy, hatred. Those kind of debilitating emotions occupy these 60,000 thoughts. And then there are some thoughts on happiness, gratitude. And that's why she says sometimes. And I felt a deep connect with that, because what we have learned from our own lived experience is that life is, at the end of the day, a mind game. It's a mind game. If you learn to tame your mind, there is no winning or losing in this game. You can't win against life. You may lose in a sense, but you can't win. So to stay in the game, you have to train your mind. And I think I connected with that part, and it was very profound when you talked about it as a drunken monkey. In ancient Hindu, Hindu today is the wrong word, so I'll just say Indian. Because
Thank you, Avis, for that.
Yeah, it's the wrong word, but in the traditional culture that we have all grown up in, there is a fable that's often told, and this fable talks about the story of the elephant and the elephant's trunk, and how the elephant's trunk represents the human mind. So the elephant in those days, when they were still walking through the villages, the trunk would go all over the place. The elephant can't keep its trunk to itself. It will pluck at the fruits on the sidewalks. It would take a coconut here, a whole bunch of bananas, or let the trunk will go into somebody's house through the window and doing all kinds of things, but not staying in one place. The human mind is pretty much like that. Then the mahouts hit upon an idea, and they said, how do we keep this trunk in one place and prevent it from straying? And so they used a bamboo stick. If you still see, you will find mahouts using that trick even now. So as long as the trunk is busy with the bamboo stick, the trunk is not straying. It's moving, but it's staying fixed on the bamboo stick. The human mind pretty much needs a toy. And when she talks about the fact that she finds poetry an immersive therapeutic experience, that's her toy. What's your toy? Only sometimes can become several times if you occupy the mind in such a manner that it doesn't stray into the debilitating thoughts, in the zone of the debilitating thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Why do you call the book Through the Window, by the way?
Yeah, because see this, I most of the poems, you can hear me.
Most of the poems I wrote during COVID times, and I would sit and watch out of the window, and I feel life passing, nothing is happening. So I was just looking at thinking about things.
And that's how
So
decided to call it Through the Window.
Yeah, so I'm just watching through the window everything.
And I'm glad, Sumita, you decided to run with that as the title of the book, because I think the book, what it does is, it gives us a view of life through the window of Geeta's experiences. And it is not at all surprising that there is a deep connect with our own experiences. Because here is an ordinary person going through an ordinary life and sharing in an extraordinary manner, in a deep manner, ordinary feelings.
And also, it's within a framework, like you don't go beyond. It's within limits.
Within limits. So your view is through that framework of the window. Interesting. I'd like to move on. I'd like to pick up the next poem, page 24. This is again an outstanding poem, and I have a question on that after I finish reading it. Nothingness sinks deep, peels layers of my brain. Nothing moves or moves me. Nothing can enter or leave. I feel suspended, cordless, unplugged, unfurled. I can be hurled, but I remain rooted in emptiness. I'd like to underline the last line, rooted in emptiness. This poem did two things to me, but before I talk about that, I want to talk to Geeta. What experience led you to write this poem?
Actually, this is a state of mind. Like sometimes there's nothing. You don't feel anything. There's nothing happening, or I don't know how to explain. Everything seems. Nothing. I don't know how to say that. It's
It's
state
just a
of
feeling.
mind.
It's a
It's
feeling.
a state of mind.
It's a state.
So however much you try, you don't have any meaning in anything. And so, a state when there's nothing happening, I don't know. I really don't know how to explain it. Yes.
But it's fascinating that you're honest about it. And I think we all can associate with that feeling of emptiness. Over to you.
Yeah, it's actually a disturbing word, but still. Siren 3, born of fire. Once again, let your hair tumble down. There are Kichakas on the prowl. Burn them all down. Draupadi, once again, let your voice silence them all, as you did in the court after Dushasana dragged you down, heaping insults and pain. Your fire, Panjali, shamed them all. Here Duryodhanas multiply and flourish, escaping the news. Panjali, once again, let your power seep through, let your fire of passion burn. Here we struggled, doormatted, suffocated, burnt, murdered, upholding your values. Krishna, Kali, call your namesake once again, for he has closed his eyes. Wake him up once again to save this womankind.
I think it's an amazing poem. It touched me and Vani very deeply. We discussed it for a long time. My question to you is, how do you think, one of the things that poets and writers do and artists do is to hold up a mirror to society, but how do you think we can deal with this at a social level? It's almost reaching, the proportions of a pandemic of its own. And so how do we deal with this? Any thoughts?
I mean, it's very sad that this is happening. We are on one hand, we are so, we speak about progress. But then this is something which is, it's so disturbing when each time even a child is not spared, a tiny infant is not spared. So I feel the entire society needs intense awareness. I think that's the only way. I mean, it has to be prevented, but I don't know.
I think
there are many parts to it.
As a teacher, and we have another one there. I think, and there are many parents obviously in the audience. I think we need to create, take up more responsibility in terms of making sure that we are creating better men.
Yes.
I think,
Yes.
more value-based education.
No, I think, may I interrupt, because it's a thing very close to my heart. And that is that other men must boycott men who do this kind of thing. Whether
Very
they
true.
finally rape them or even just molest them or just pass comments which are very, very disturbing to women. I think other men must
Not laugh at it
collectively.
as if it's a joke.
Yes. I
And
think
that
that's
starts with boys' jokes, as a matter of
Exactly.
fact.
That's a good
And those
point.
things have to stop.
That's definitely a very good point.
I think
we
this is
we
some-
try to practice it, Vani and I.
In fact, even the punishment given is so unfair.
Yes.
The girl has to prove something which cannot be proven so easy. How can an infant know anything?
Absolutely.
So there must be some other kind of punishment which will make them realize that this is not right.
Yes.
You use a word called doormatted, and I think that's a very powerful word. We recently saw a Netflix film on Netflix called She Said, which is based on the starting point of the Me Too campaign and Harvey Weinstein, and it's a very powerful film. It's the story of the New York Times expose on Harvey Weinstein, and I think by that time I had read Geeta's book and I'd underlined doormatted, and every woman that told her story in that film, I could link it back to this word. That feeling of that person, I could link it back to this word. Very interestingly, in another book that you wrote of poems, To My Violin, there is a beautiful poem called Writer's Wife. And she talks about how, as a writer's wife, she gets asked, does he serve him coffees? Although she has been reading his manuscripts and been with him through the evolution of his work, But she gets asked questions like, do you serve him coffees? Do you even understand what he's writing? And the agent comes and says, you know, now you can count the money. So either she's seen as a wife, a provider, or as a manager, but not as a companion. And I think that is a very important word there, doormatted. I think. Thank you for writing this. You wanted to say something?
No, doormatted. I mean, I feel even women are taken for granted most of the
Completely
time.
stereotyped.
Yes.
That's the doormat.
Yes, it's and it's not as though only weak people are. It's not like that. Even very educated, very women are badly treated.
Absolutely. Very true. Very true.
No,
Prema, you can sit here.
So I just want to say that Geeta has always displayed such creativity, and in school also, you know, my daughter was a student and she sends her best wishes today, her love. And that creativity she encouraged in all the students, you know, and so a lot of them understood about literature because of Geeta's teaching. Because before that, I think they all thought, oh, English, and we just read it before the test or something like that. But I think she brought out a lot of creativity in her students. And there are two things. Of course, we knew you wrote it in COVID by page 68, where she says, Earth on quarantine under clear skies. So it was clear that she had written it in COVID. Two things I want to point out which struck me. One was the fact that there is almost no punctuation in the poems. So the fact that there is no punctuation means that she's just moving smoothly from one to the other. There's no comma, full stop. I have the last line, and occasionally one or two poems has an exclamation point. I noticed that was one thing. And the second thing that I noticed was how few definite articles there were. She doesn't say the. I like that because, you know, she wasn't specifying anything. I like that very much. It was a very lovely group of books, as you pointed out, group of poems, as you pointed out, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Prema. Thank you, AVIS. Thank you, Prema ma'am.
Can you please come over here?
I don't think I need my most of these poems were written during COVID, right?
Yes.
And what I remember reading them and thinking, and being struck by how there isn't that sense of heaviness or dread. You know, that hasn't seeped into any of the work, any of the poems.
Yeah.
Right? There's a great deal of tenderness. It's very gentle. It's a lot of light in the poems. They're not dark, heavy poems.
No.
So I think we sort of dipped into the quiet that terrible years, COVID years gave us,
Yes.
rather than the heaviness, and just an observation.
Yeah, no. In some poems I have suggested, right? Like the poem
Rooted in
said
emptiness.
was not emptiness. There's no one around, and you don't come. So it's like what you read also, the virtual. It's everyone you see them all only virtually. So all that is there, and then sadness. Some of the thing I have written, it speaks about death and so that's because of this COVID thing which was happening. So you had the fear that what if you also it's your turn to die?
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Yeah, I've written that somewhere. Yes. But basically this is all, I'm just watching at life through a window, as I said earlier. So within the framework, according to my experience. Thank you.
Instead of looking forward, is there another book on the pipeline?
I don't know. I just write, and then when I compile it, there are many poems, and I think this time I did. I don't know whether there's a
You
next
still have
time.
a few unpublished.
Yeah.
Like like AVIS has one unpublished, you have a few more. So
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll come out sometime.
Yes.
But my question is,
Yeah.
do you like to edit after you write, or do you like
Yes,
to read?
yes. Editing I have to do.
You have to.
Yes, yes.
The second part of it is, does the thought come again and again in your mind before you actually allow it to settle
Right,
into one
yes.
line? Or
More or less. Or maybe I'll remember something.
Geeta, you want to read out this one here on page 98?
Oh, the last page. You want me to read?
Yes, yes.
The last page disturbs me. Many thoughts converge. There is little space left for my pen to wander. My attempt has to be perfect, for the book is ending. That's when I realize I have to erase many words, and I hesitate to begin a new one.
yeah, very. That kind of sums
I
up
think-
whatever I said.
Exactly. To your question.
Yeah.
And I just want to point out one more thing. All of us who are parents and grandparents will completely identify with the page 54 and 80. Avis just read out 54.
54.
We all felt very, very, what can I say? And on page 80, that too. Anyone who is a parent or a grandparent, read out page 80,
Yeah.
Geeta.
Quiet. Don't speak. You will wake him up. He's asleep. After all the festivities and celebrations, he's tired, exhausted. See, the bells are silent tonight. So are the drums and the pipes. The temple is empty and quiet. Only a calf is waiting patiently to lick him awake in the morning.
And also just one
That
more,
one is a Krishna
82.
poem.
Yeah.
Anyone else who can read 82?
80 is a Krishna poem.
Yes, 82 also. Very lovely for parents and grandparents.
I watch over you. My gaze weaves your destiny. My dreams are yours too. I look at you fondly, showering love, blessings. Your path is mine too. For you I bear all the pain. Your sufferings are mine too. There is the space, infinite, between us, like the limitless ocean in the sky. I shine only for you, longing to carry you in my arms before we reach the end of our journey, together soon.
It seemed a poem about childhood, the end of the journey soon. It's about childhood which flashes past you.
I want to cheat once again. There was a segment that I skipped for want of time, but because we still seem to have some time, if you have it, I'll take a few minutes. This is for the audience. Okay, this was meant for the audience in my scheme of things. So I'll go back to it. I'm going to read a poem. You can follow it, and then I'll ask a question. Okay? And I'll ask the question after I read the poem. Page number 41. He is serious when he is joking, but he is forever joking. Oh, he can never be serious. His every word has a catch in it, and he is a master of words. He can play with them. He has friends wherever he goes. As he makes anyone laugh, how does he get these jokes? I wonder, at the drop of a hat. His lightheartedness is infectious. From his mother to his children, friends, relatives, casual acquaintances, no one can escape. He makes everyone laugh. His friends often ask, is he ever serious? I pray, God, let him not. So this is the question, and whoever answers, and if many of you answer, all of you get a prize. And the prize is a happiness hug from Vani and me. So the question is, who is the protagonist of this poem? The resident poet, the resident muse. Yeah. So this, I think, this must be the unique instance of a soulmate dedicating a poem to her soulmate. Writing a poem. Normally, I think, I'm sure many men have written poems. I'm sure many women have written poems. But something that looks at it from a soul connection point of view and talks about something which we all need in this world, which is somebody that can make us laugh, somebody that can heal this broken world with some cheer. I think that's what Shri does, and this is a great celebration of that.
Even that's a perfect ending to the evening. Glad you brought that up.
Thank you. I'm glad Vidya gave me the time.
Jairam, you wanted to say
Yeah,
something?
I just wanted to say, initially when you read the poem on page 51, you tore me to pieces, and now I stand in fragments, having lost myself in this journey. Yet, a part of me holds on to you, desperate to reach the end, so much in love with you, life. I thought it was referring to Shreekumar, but then you say based on a sculpture, and I just want to know what sculpture was that?
It was I don't know. It was a man standing, but you won't find half of him.
And
It was a man
stands
standing.
on one leg, and I don't remember the artist anyway, the name. And he's in a coat, and the coat is hanging, and partly I can't explain that.
There are pieces of him missing, right?
Yes,
It's a very
yes.
famous sculpture. I can't get the name of that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay. So if you Google it on the
Yes,
internet.
yes.
But it's not Shri.
Thank you so much. So much.
He is there in full. No part of him is missing.
I think this is when we should call Shri.
Yeah. Do you want to say?
In this case, and the architect of the book, Sumita. And the heart that beat today was Vidya's. Thank you so much.
So I think I need to call Sumita Shoam to deliver the vote of thanks. But there is still some more coming up after the vote of thanks, so please stay in your seats.
It's my honor and pleasure to stand in front of all of you and thank all of you to be here and be such an awesome audience. So quiet, everyone was listening, everyone was just listening. It was beautiful, this whole session was beautiful. Yes, Geeta's poems are simple, endearingly simple. Anyone who's tried to write poetry or anything will know how difficult it is to write something simply. Our thoughts, as we were discussing today, our thoughts are haywire, it's a big cloud over our head. And to extract the essence of that and bring it out in simple words that pierce the heart of the reader, that is something that Geeta has done so beautifully in this book. So a big thank you to Geeta for first coming to me, to bringing all the great books to me, to Shreekumar, my mentor, for all the help, and Geeta and Shreekumar, they've been an amazing support for me. Geeta is like my mother. And actually my mother's name is also Geeta, so that's another coincidence. Thank you so much, Harish, Prakriti, for this whole thing is theirs. They have done this for us. And the books are courtesy of Geeta. She's provided them over there. So thank you, Avis. Thank you, Vani. Thank you, Vidya. Despite all her everything, thank you so much for being such a pillar of strength. Thank you, each one of you, for coming here and supporting us. Thank you.